Will this thing make a row? Will this thing make a row? Huh? I have to admit, the first few times I heard that, I didn't know what people were asking. But it never fails. We usually get 2 or 3 calls a week from people asking, will this thing make a row? Now what they actually meant was, will this plow set attachment, when hooked up to the wheel hoe, create an elevated planting surface for me to plant my seeds in? And yes, it will do that. You can position these plow blades in the furrowing position like you see here, or switch them around and put them in the hilling position like this right here. And that works on the single wheel hoe, that works on our double wheel hoe, and it works on our high arch wheel hoe as well, like you see behind me here. But let's get back to this concept of making a row. So in my mind, a row wasn't made, or a row isn't made until I plant some seeds in a straight line. Then I have a row. I have made a row. But evidently, in some of the vernacular and language of some of the old-timer gardeners out there, their idea of making a row was created this elevated planting surface for which they would then place their seeds into or on top of. Now we don't plant this way, and I'll tell you why in just a little bit, but we still see a large amount of gardeners out there creating this elevated surface or this hill and planting into it. Now I'm not 100% sure of the derivation or the origination of this technique or strategy. My best guess is that it harkens back to the days of kind of small scale tractor farming, where they had that equipment that would go through there and basically comb the soil and create a series of mounds there for which they would then plant on top of. And when it comes to planting on an elevated surface or a hill or a mound, there's nothing wrong with doing it at all. It's not going to hurt anything. But we don't do it because we don't have to. It's just one extra unnecessary step that we would have to take before planting. Planting on a hill or an elevated area can be very advantageous if you live in an area that has poor soil drainage or you have large amounts of rainfall throughout the growing season. By building that mound or that hill and planting on top of it, you're going to ensure that your plants are higher up than the rest of the soil there, and it's going to drain better, and your plants aren't going to get waterlogged, and they're probably going to perform better for you. Now where we live, we have a sandy loam soil that drains pretty well. So there's really no need for us to create an elevated surface. Our soils aren't getting waterlogged for a prolonged period of time. We don't really ever have standing water in our gardens. If we do get a lot of rainfall, it gets hot enough here, it usually evaporates it up pretty quickly. So we don't take that extra step of creating a hill and then planting on top of it. What we like to do, we call planting on the flat. So we'll plant on the flat soil, and then for some crops, as the plants grow, we'll throw dirt to them then to kind of create that hill, stabilize the plant, and encourage some more root development. We do that with things like corn, potatoes, even tomatoes. Now if your garden's in an area that's well drained, but you just like to plant on a hill because your father did it that way, your grandfather did it that way, and it just makes you feel good, makes you feel nostalgic, that's perfectly fine. But if you don't live in an area with poorly drained soils, there's not really any advantage to building that hill and planting on top of it. It's just going to be an extra labor step that goes into play there when you're planting your garden. So take that into consideration when you're planting your garden. If you don't need to make a hill, don't make a hill, and it's going to save you a little time and energy, and you can always come back later and throw some dirt to those plants and help encourage some root growth and stabilize those plants. Now if you do live in an area that has a lot of rainfall and doesn't drain very well, and you don't already plant on a hill, it's probably something you should definitely consider. You know, you can build that hill and plant on top of it, get your plants above that water line, help everything drain a lot better, and your plants aren't going to be waterlogged and soggy, and they'll be a lot more healthier because they're elevated a little bit. So to heal or not to heal, to make a row or not to make a row. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. So put some comments below and let me know, if you do heal, why do you heal? If you don't heal, why don't you heal? And I will see you guys on the next video.